Strap on, ladies and gentlemen, because today we are going to be talking about UFOs. Not just about UFOs, but specifically I wanted to talk about some of these wacko type of ideas that all ufologists, all conspiracy theorists, anybody thinking that there might be extraterrestrial life, that these people are somehow crazy.
Is it a delusion that people think this way? Should we worry about it psychologically?
You know, I used to worry about it because I get phone calls every day from people who are having difficulties with aliens in their personal lives. And, it's...
I'm sure people feel really distressed about that.
Well, and 8% of the public, according to one poll, is actually being abducted by them, hauled out of their bedrooms for experiments, their moms. All right. So, maybe it improves their social life. Who's to say?
Well, why don't we just go ahead and join in the Joe Rogan Experience today? And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to just play out some of the more important segments, the more relevant segments regarding UFOs, and just kind of, pretend like I'm almost there with them. And I just want to give my opinion on the matter, because I think there's something that could be contributed to this conversation. And I think a lot can be said about a lot of the viewers who know much more about the topic than I think the layman person assumes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play the clip and see what they got to say.
Kyle Kalinske sent me something today. I wanted you to see, Jamie. It's there's some shit going down with UFO sightings.
Oh yeah.
I've been played before.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if they were new.
Here, I'll send it to you.
I've been following this stuff.
Yeah, it's
Have you, Tim? I've seen your new UFO. No, actually, you know what? Very quickly, I don't want to disturb the conversation so early, but I do want to say, as before we get really into this, that I do respect Joe Rogan and Tim Pool a lot for their own individual reasons. And so if you hear criticism, it's just to say, if you guys want to talk about the subject, be informed. And if you're not informed, you don't have to be so dismissive to the ones who have essentially been trying to talk about this type of topics. So, I'm not trying to really criticize these two individuals. I just want to give my 2 cents, because this topic is often ridiculed. And I just think it's kind of unfair to jump into this topic uninformed, at the same time kind of be very dismissive towards the ones who seem to have been right, if you want to trust the Pentagon with this UFO disclosure. All right, let's play the clip.
all right. I just texted it to you. Pentagon officially releases UFO. This is the tweet. It says, new Pentagon formally released 3 mysterious UFO videos captured by Navy pilots. The already leaked videos showed what DoD insists on calling unidentified aerial phenomenon, moving at incredible speeds and performing near impossible maneuvers. This is a weird subject because it's one of those subjects where people automatically dismiss it because it's been so touted by kooks. There's so many wacky fucks that have talked about UFOs anybody talking about UFOs has to be out of their fucking mind.
No.
But then when you see these videos and you see them performing these...
Look, I've been talking about UFOs for a while, and, when I graduated college, I didn't do all those fancy graduate schools because I simply didn't want to. If you looked at my GPA, it was, God, I hate sounding all arrogant like this, but look, we're not all wackos. Some of us could have gone to Harvard. Some of us were breaking curves in our test. I'll just put it that way, okay?
Impossible tasks. Like these things are moving in a way that we've never seen anything move before. Flipping upside down and sideways, moving at insane rates of speed. Like, they don't know what these are.
Yeah.
Aerial phenomena.
What's interesting, though, is I was reading one of these stories, and they passively mentioned that the sighting was near a U.S. naval, technology station of some sort, like a top secret development. And I'm like,
That could be one of two things. Either right, it's developed by the people that are at that base, or they're monitoring the people that are at that base. These aircraft, we call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory nor any foreign inventory that we are aware of. Maybe they see the shit that's going down with China and all the ships being moved and like, listen, you fuckheads.
the aliens?
Yeah, maybe they're like, listen, you fucking morons.
Well, he kind of went over his own line about how the inventory is not in the known military inventory, meaning when the Pentagon sees this through radar and the fighter fighters' witness accounts, it doesn't match anything that we think about militaristically. Why is this so relevant? Because we've highlighted documents in this show, we did it just the last episode, that indicated that the CIA was covering up certain investigations of UFO sightings all the way back in the 1950s. So whatever it is that people are seeing now was also being seen over 70 years ago, implying that technologically this probably isn't ours. Just wanted to put that out real quick.
Territorial apes.
I'd like to think that, but
You don't think so?
Manhattan Project, man. I mean, the U.S. has probably got some crazy motherfucking weapons.
Could be, but the Manhattan Project was also coincidentally right after they started detonating bombs when the aliens started showing up.
That's what they think, right?
Yeah, well, that was when the bulk of U.S. sightings started jumping, and worldwide, I believe, too.
Maybe we've slowly been getting more and more information about this.
I just wanted to add, realistically, it was after World War II, when we first set off the nuclear weapons, that I think there was a whole new spur of sightings starting out with the Foo Fighters from the Japanese troops. So I don't think it was the Philadelphia experiment happened not that much later, but I think the catalyst really was the setting off of the nuclear weapons in World War II. But
I've been actually reading a lot of these stories over the past several months. More admissions from government, more release of documents, and more sightings. So there's been a big, I don't want to call it, well, a lot of people murmuring that April was going to be the month when we finally learn the truth. April's almost up.
It's almost up.
It's almost up.
We got like a few days.
Nah, man.
The 27th?
You know what I used?
More days is left.
Do you know?
30?
Do you know about what happened? Do you know about the O'Hare Airport sighting?
Which one's that?
So this was, I think, in like 2006 at Chicago's International O'Hare. A UFO came down and hovered above. I can't remember which terminal it was. It hovered for a few minutes, I think, and then shot straight, punched a hole in the clouds. Everybody saw it happen. Now, I had just quit working at O'Hare around this time when the sighting happened, so I had friends who were still there. I had a friend tell me that when this UFO came down, people on Mannheim Road, which is the road on the side of O'Hare, got out of their cars, like just stopped the light, got up, and were looking and staring at it. And that the people who were working, where we worked for American Eagle Airlines, walked out of the rooms and were just staring at it float and then shoot up and punch a hole in the clouds. And you know what they said? Weather phenomenon. So there's a photo of it. A pilot took a photo of it. This is back when very early phone cameras.
You want to talk about the O'Hare incident? First of all, we did report on that. It was actually one of the most talked, I think it was the most clicked story for Chicago Tribune at the time. And let me show you this because this is really cool. So I had this picture from somebody who had claimed to be an alien abduction victim. This individual had supplied all kinds of different evidence that we had digitally authenticated. Now, what makes this evidence so compelling is that, first of all, I was able to tell that this came straight out of his phone. But the actual thing that I'm about to highlight, he didn't even mention it because there were other objects in the pictures. This was something that was really far off. And then, well, let me just show you what I'm talking about here. Start off as this tiny little image, and he was showing me this particular object. But if you look far off, you see this object is actually punching a hole through the cloud. I kid you not. So yeah, we've seen this phenomenon, and not just that, but you can actually see almost like the wave propagation that's happening behind the object. So this is definitely a phenomenon that you see with people who claim that they're being abducted by aliens. All right, Tempo, let's see what you got to say, buddy.
There was a really crappy photo of it, and
that might be it.
That might be. It was out of the cockpit of a window. A pilot took a photo, And, I wonder, where have all the sightings gone since phones became ubiquitous? I mean, there's a simple, I guess, excuse. The aliens.
Why does he say that the sightings went away since phones became ubiquitous? I think some of the best evidence that we've gotten in this channel has come from phones, which allowed us to at least digitally forensically verify it, meaning unless the kid is some kind of hacker and can hack the metadata, then at least the metadata can tell us that the image was legitimate, which we had multiple versions of these from multiple different sources, sometimes showing what looked to be similar crafts. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe they decreased a little bit, but I don't know where he's getting that info.
Are sentient. They know we have phones. They're like, okay, stop, decloaking or whatever. But I wonder if, why is it there were so many UFOs and then around the time cell phone cameras come out, they're gone?
Well, I think most people are full of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most people like to pretend they see things that don't really see things. But I don't think that excludes the possibility. It's not like these things are mutually exclusive. Like people are full of shit, therefore aliens don't exist. I think aliens could be real and people are full of shit. And I think that it's very rare that they visit us. But if they do, how often do scientists go to the Congo to study chimps? I mean, how many people do they send to the bottom of the ocean to look for new life forms? How rare is it?
Let me trip you out
on
that idea.
What I want to say about Joe Rogan is, some people are full of shit. There are people who just kind of make up stuff for attention. But, if you look at some of the cases, like, the thing about, if you study ufology, you will know that there are researchers like Dr. Mack, who was a Harvard psychologist, who did not believe in UFOs at the time. It was only upon gathering this immense amount of information regarding all the patients and seeing similarities between their accounts that could not be accounted for anything. I mean, he was literally looking for some kind of common lining disease that would be attributed to a certain personality trait. Unfortunately, what ended up happening is he was getting the same cases from all these different types of personalities, age groups, demographics, sex, you call it. These people, whether they're smart, genius, dumb, didn't matter. They were reporting the same thing. And when that happens in psychology, then that usually tends to mean it's some kind of universal thing. It's not just something that is attributed to some kind of cognitive dissonance that's happening with one particular group. But anyways, here.
We put decoys up for animals. Animals can't tell the difference. What if you've actually met a decoy person? You couldn't tell the difference.
Maybe it's you, bro.
Maybe it's me. That's right.
And that's why you're able to work so much.
Oh, yeah. I'm a robot.
You don't get tired.
No.
So you're interested in news and disseminating factual evidence.
Because what we're actually doing is collecting a database for...
Joe Rogan gets snippy like this sometimes. I don't know if he got annoyed in this interview by Tim Pool, because Tim Pool kind of carries this sense of, he's like, like he really believes in himself, but Tim Pool, I think, sometimes overspeaks things that he doesn't always know 100% about, UFOs being one of them. There's going to be another one that we're going to talk about later on. But
No, they just, take you up in the ship, probe you, and learn about your butt.
This is the thing about putting things up your butt.
Most
kidding, doctors don't even do that. Like, they have MRIs now. Didn't aliens need to probe you in your ass? I think it's just what everyone's afraid of. They're afraid of things going in their ass. So that's what they think is going to happen if the aliens get them. They're going to freeze me and touch my ass.
Somebody told a dumb story back in the day, and it was the most...
You wonder why people have a hard time talking about, abduction cases, because just look at Joe Rogan. And look, once again, I like Tim Pool and I do like Joe Rogan, but last time I think Tim Pool was calling people who believe in UFOs Skittles and Rainbow. So, I didn't want to be arrogant earlier, when I was talking about like breaking curves in my tests or whatever, but I needed to let the audience know that not everybody looks like that. Some people are actually studying really, really hard, and they just are like, you know what? I want to talk about this topic. This is something that needs to be discussed, doesn't matter. It's just something that is important. I don't know why. I don't know why some people just like this. All right, I'll just keep playing.
Yes.
Somebody told a dumb story back in the day, and it was the most sensational version everybody had to have.
He's mean.
Somebody
Somebody
told a dumb story back in the day, and it was the most sensational version everybody had to have it. So they were like, that's what they went with,
Maybe they do that to keep your mouth shut. They
Or-
fuck you in the ass just so you keep your mouth shut.
Or some dude actually got abducted, right?
Yeah.
And he comes back, and he's like, they think they won against me. They think they beat me. They put stuff with my butt. They're weirdos.
Do you ever hear
They're
the
weirdos, not
story
me.
of Betty?
These butt probe jokes, man. And you know what amazes me is that Tim Pool takes himself as a very serious person. And I know that Neil deGrasse Tyson takes himself very serious. But somehow both of them can't resist making anal probe jokes.
So you're there, you're like on the slab, because they always do like the sex experiments on you, on the flying saucer. So there you are, and they're poking at you. Here's what you do. You ready?
Just to ridicule alien abduction victims?
In Barney Hill.
No.
It's the very first UFO abduction story. It's an ancient story.
He doesn't even know Barney Hill.
What's crazy is
doesn't know
Angela
Barney
Hill,
Hill.
who's a UFC
And he wants
fighter.
to talk about
I had her
UFOs.
on the podcast, and after the show, she told me her grandpa was Barney Hill.
Whoa.
And I was like, holy fuck, like we forgot to do.
By the way, I've seen Angela Hill fight like 3 times in the UFC. So, like, she's the granddaughter of Barney Hill. She's a UFC fighter. Joe Rogan knows about her. He's interviewed her, I think. I think she's been in his show before. And then he still makes these anal probe jokes? Like, this is the stuff that I don't get. Like, is there some kind of, like, cognitive dissonance going on? That these two individuals are, used to make fun of people with UFOs, but now that the Pentagon is releasing this footage, that their egos are, quote-unquote, kind of in danger, so they have to revert to this child humor? Just guess. I don't know.
We didn't talk about it during the show, but she wanted to bring it up because she knows I'm kind of obsessed with UFOs. But the account that they have, like they get hypnotized and he's recalling the abduction and they have like the same story. It's very terrifying. You hear him crying and screaming and, that he was taken aboard this craft and examined and brought back and they have missing time. But here's the thing. If they only did that occasionally, they only came down once every few years and just scooped some person up in the middle of some rural place.
Not that
Like if you're flying over, I think their instance was I believe it was in Maine. If you're flying over somewhere like Maine, which is a very low population state, and you see a lone car and it's just traveling along the highway, and there's places in Maine where you go from like Portland to Bangor. When you're traveling on that road, it's like 60 miles with nothing, not a gas station, nothing. If you were an alien and you saw a car by itself, you're like, no other car, let's move in, we got one.
It sounds kind of crazy, but I actually kind of agree with this. I think there was this misconception that people who live in rural areas, that maybe they just weren't, some people might have thought, oh, they weren't as educated, blah, blah, blah. So those are the people who are claiming to create UFO stories. No, I think it's just that they live in areas where, if there's going to be a UFO who's going to come in and sweep in and essentially take somebody, a subject for experimentation, that there's a lot less liability taking them from a more sparse area than New York City, for example. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Isn't it just easier to think it's the U.S. government?
No,
Why not?
because we don't have the capability of doing something like that. I don't think.
Yeah, and once again, I want to go back to that file that we found from the CIA that basically says we've had this technology since the 50s, or at least the CIA would not let us do a proper scientific investigation on a mass sighting that happened over the Capitol, probably because they're scared of what it was that could be uncovered. So if they're scared of what it was that could be uncovered, it probably means we're dealing with strange technologies for decades and decades and decades, over half a century, essentially.
I don't think the capability of the scientists working for the government is any different than the capability of the scientists that are working for, Project X or, fill in the blanks in terms of like what Raytheon, publicly traded companies,
How long? Look, quadcopters don't seem all that complicated to me. Right?
Quadcopters.
Yeah, like a
helicopters,
like drones. You know, we've seen the little drone
Okay.
toys you buy. They got 4 propellers. Take that concept, use thinner, jets, and surround it in a disc so that it's, universally, like it can move in any direction because it's got, because it's
What
omnidirectional.
power source? Where's the gas tank?
Well, lithium-ion battery, or
Come on, man. You're talking space shit. Like this hasn't even been invented yet. Think about how little mileage you can get out of a Tesla.
they had
as
no.
advanced as Tesla is.
You know-
it's still when it's going full out, it can only go for. I mean, you get 307 miles if you drive like a grandma, but if you drive like a maniac, you don't even get half that.
You know that they, I could be wrong with this, but I'm pretty sure that they had this flying platform in the 70s that uses gas power. And they've also had jetpacks for a long time.
No, they've had sort of. They've had jetpacks that are capable.
Well, so the point I was trying to get to is if you take something like a quadcopter, you could absolutely fuel it with gas or
It'd be
whatever.
loud as fuck.
But it would depending on how you mitigate
It'd be
the
an
noise.
engine. It'd be an engine.
Tim Pool doesn't seem to know the UFO phenomenon because he's talking about, some kind of quadcopter with like turbine engines, some kind of jet engine that would propel us sideways at extremely high speeds. And I think Joe Rogan does a good job of correcting him as to what the actual UFO phenomenon is, which is something that was also talked about in that interview that we just posted, which is that these crafts are unusually silent.
Also, it wasn't making any sound. I mean, usually the planes that I encounter in my neighborhood, like if I see they're in the sky, they're still making a sound. This made absolutely zero sound.